For centuries, humanity believed the greatest threat to its existence lay within itself: wars, pandemics, environmental collapse. But on a cold, cloudless night, the stars themselves turned hostile. A single message, broadcast across every device on Earth, shattered that illusion forever. We are the Overlords. Surrender your world, or watch it burn. Above the planet, the heavens split open as colossal alien ships emerged from hyperspace, their dark hulls blotting out constellations. For the first time in history, Earth was united not by choice, but by fear. The question wasn't if humanity would fight back. It was whether they'd even survive long enough to try. Are you ready for this amazing story? So let's start. Chapter 1. The Arrival of the Overlords. The transmission arrived without warning, piercing through every medium on Earth: television screens, radio waves, even personal devices. It was clear, cold, and unnervingly human. Surrender or be obliterated. In the United Nations headquarters, the room erupted into chaos. World leaders, diplomats, and military officials shouted over one another, their voices a cacophony of fear and denial. Dr. Emily Carter, a physicist specializing in quantum communications, stood at the edge of the room, her face pale but her mind racing. She had been summoned here not for diplomacy, but because her technology had inadvertently detected the message before it was broadcast to the planet. "It's not a hoax," she said, her voice barely audible over the din. The signal originated from beyond the Kuiper Belt. "We're not alone anymore." As if to underscore her words, the sky split open that evening. Vast shadows descended upon Earth, blotting out the stars. Alien ships, each the size of a city, loomed over the planet. Their surfaces shimmered with a metallic sheen, their designs utterly alien, curved, organic, and humming with an energy no earthly science could explain. The Overlords had arrived. Commander Liam Hayes stared out of the observation deck at NORAD, watching the screens that showed live feeds of the alien vessels hovering above Earth's major cities. He had spent years preparing for threats, but this was beyond anything he'd imagined. "Any communication since the initial message?" he asked, his tone clipped and professional despite the knot of dread in his stomach. "No, sir," replied Lieutenant Jackson, "but their positioning suggests they're preparing for something. They're in geosynchronous orbit, locked over population centers. They're making a statement," Liam muttered. "We're ants under their magnifying glass." He turned to his team. "Get me Dr. Carter. If anyone has a clue how to deal with this, it's her." By the time Emily arrived at NORAD, panic had begun spreading across the globe. Governments scrambled to issue reassurances, but the streets told a different story. Riots broke out in major cities, and millions fled their homes, seeking safety where none could be promised. "They're not bluffing," Emily said as she entered the command room. "Their ships are emitting energy signatures off the charts. If they wanted to destroy us, they could do it now. They're waiting for us to surrender." Liam studied her, noting the determination in her eyes despite the fear etched on her face. "Then we don't have much time. What are our options?" Emily hesitated. "I've been working on something unconventional. A signal buried in their transmission suggests they've encountered resistance before. If we can decode it, we might find a clue to their weaknesses." Before Liam could respond, alarms blared. A holographic map of Earth displayed a growing red dot on the surface of the moon. The Overlords had fired their first warning shot, vaporizing an entire section of the lunar surface. A cold silence fell over the room. "They're not waiting for long," Liam said grimly. "We need a plan, and we need it now." The countdown had begun. Earth had 7 days. Chapter 2. The Unlikely Alliance. The room buzzed with tension as Dr. Emily Carter spread out a series of satellite images and old reports across the conference table. Around her sat a reluctant coalition of military generals, scientists, and political leaders. Commander Liam Hayes leaned against the table, arms crossed, his sharp gaze shifting between Emily and the faces of the skeptics in the room. "We've been sitting on a secret for decades," Emily began, her voice steady but urgent. "A discovery made in Antarctica, nearly 50 years ago. Structure buried deep beneath the ice, far older than humanity itself." The room fell silent. Even the most hardened skeptics sat up straighter. Emily activated a projector, displaying a grainy image of what appeared to be a colossal, hexagonal artifact. Its surface was engraved with symbols that glowed faintly, even in the photograph. This artifact, Emily continued, has resisted every attempt at analysis. But recently, we've detected faint energy surges emanating from it. Those surges match the energy signature of the Overlord's ships. Murmurs filled the room. A skeptical voice broke through. Are you suggesting this thing is alien in origin? I'm not suggesting, Emily said firmly. I'm stating. And it might be our only hope. An hour later, Liam found himself aboard a military transport jet heading for Antarctica. Emily sat across from him, reviewing a tablet filled with incomprehensible data. Around them, a team of hand-picked operatives prepared for what was being called a recovery mission. Why haven't we used this thing before? Liam asked, breaking the tense silence. Emily sighed, looking up from her tablet. Because we didn't understand it. We still don't. Every attempt to activate it failed until the Overlords showed up. Their arrival might be the key to unlocking its potential. And if it's a trap, Liam pressed. Then we're already out of options, Emily replied. Her tone was calm, but her clenched fists betrayed her nerves. By the time the team arrived at the excavation site, the Antarctic winds were howling. The artifact stood in the center of a vast underground chamber, its surface glowing faintly in the dim light. It was larger than Liam had imagined, towering over them like a monument from a forgotten age. Energy levels are spiking, Emily announced, her voice echoing through the chamber. It's reacting to the Overlord's presence. As the team set to work extracting the artifact, an ominous hum filled the air. Emily's tablet began to display erratic readings. This is new, she muttered, her fingers flying over the screen. It's trying to communicate, but the message is fragmented. Suddenly, alarms blared. Above the chamber, a scout ship descended from the clouds. Its sleek, otherworldly design unmistakable. The Overlords had found them. Move, Liam barked, rallying the team. Soldiers scrambled to position as the scout ship unleashed a piercing beam, cutting through the icy terrain. Emily clutched her tablet, her face pale but resolute. We can't leave it behind. If this artifact is what I think it is, it's the only thing that can save us. The team worked frantically as the ground trembled under the weight of the scout ship's attack. With a deafening crack, the artifact was lifted from its ancient resting place, glowing brighter than ever. Go, 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 Liam shouted as the transport roared to life. As the ship lifted off, the Overlord scout hovered ominously, its intentions clear. They knew what Earth had found, and they wouldn't let it go without a fight. The moment the transport cleared Antarctica's frozen expanse, the airwaves crackled with grim updates. The Overlords were no longer just observing. Their ships, once stationary sentinels in the sky, began moving with precision and purpose. They're hitting our satellites, Lieutenant Jackson's voice relayed over the comms. One by one, every major communication network is going dark. They're cutting us off. Commander Liam Hayes tightened his grip on the transport's railing, his mind racing. Beside him, Dr. Emily Carter was glued to her tablet, the artifact's glowing symbols reflected in her wide eyes. Emily, how's that thing going to help us? Liam asked, his tone sharper than he intended. Because right now, it feels like we just poked a bear. It's not a bear, Emily replied without looking up. It's a storm, and this might be our lightning rod. Before Liam could press her further, the transport lurched violently. The pilot's voice cut through the cabin, tense but controlled. Incoming fire. Scout ships on our tail. Above the Pacific, 3 Overlord scout ships bore down on the transport, their sleek, organic shapes emitting beams of energy that seared through the air. The transport's evasive maneuvers kept them barely out of reach, but the odds were grim. Defensive systems online, barked a soldier manning the transport's weaponry. But these things are built for speed, not firepower. Emily glanced up from her tablet, her mind working at breakneck speed. If we can amplify the artifact's energy output, we might. Not now. Liam cut her off, snapping into action. All hands, focus on keeping us in the air. The Overlord ships tied in their formation, their beams slicing dangerously close. Emily clenched her fists, her mind screaming for a solution. Then she noticed something. The artifact's glow intensified. Each time the scout ships fired, it's responding to their energy signatures, she whispered, her voice growing louder as realization dawned. We can use this. In the cramped confines of the transport, Emily worked frantically to interface the artifact with the ship's power systems. Sparks flew as she connected alien circuits to human technology. defying every principle of physics she knew. "Emily, what are you doing?" Liam demanded. "Trust me," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We don't have time for a lecture." With a final connection, the artifact surged to life. A low hum filled the cabin, building into a deafening roar. Outside, a pulse of blinding light erupted from the transport, expanding outward like a shockwave. The Overlord scouts recoiled as the pulse struck them, their ships shuddering violently. One lost control, spiraling into the ocean below. The other two retreated, their sleek forms vanishing into the clouds. Cheers erupted in the cabin, but Emily wasn't celebrating. Her hands trembled as she stared at the artifact. Its symbols had shifted, forming a pattern she could almost decipher. "What just happened?" Liam asked, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and suspicion. Emily looked up, her expression grim. "We didn't destroy them. We just sent a message Earth isn't as weak as they thought." As the transport touched down at a hidden military base, news of the Overlord's countermeasures poured in. Major cities reported widespread disruptions, power outages, communication failures, and attacks on key infrastructure. "They're testing us," Liam said in a briefing with global leaders. "And they're escalating." Emily stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "We've bought time, but we need to act fast. The artifact's message is incomplete, but I'm starting to see a pattern. It's pointing us towards something bigger." "What do you mean?" a general asked. Emily hesitated, the weight of her discovery pressing down on her. "This artifact, it's not just a weapon. It's a key, and I think it's unlocking a warning left by someone who faced the Overlords before." Liam exchanged a glance with Emily, his jaw tightening. The fight was far from over, and now it seemed Earth's survival hinged, not just on courage but on solving a mystery buried in time. The underground research facility buzzed with activity as scientists and engineers swarmed around the artifact. Its glow pulsed rhythmically, casting an eerie light over the room. Dr. Emily Carter stood at the center, her focus unshaken despite the chaos around her. The artifact's patterns were changing, aligning into a sequence that she was beginning to understand. "This isn't just a weapon," Emily announced, her voice cutting through the chatter. "It's a map, and it's leading us to something, or somewhere." Commander Liam Hayes, arms crossed, frowned. "A map to what? We're barely holding them off as it is. And you want to chase down some ancient breadcrumbs?" Emily turned to him, her eyes alight with determination. "This is bigger than us, Liam. The artifact was left here for a reason. If we don't follow where it leads, we might never understand how to stop the Overlords." The Overlords weren't idle. Reports flooded in from across the globe. Their fleet was reconfiguring, shifting into an ominous new formation. Massive ships moved into the lower atmosphere, their presence casting cities into shadow. People watched in dread as alien drones descended, dismantling critical infrastructure with surgical precision. The artifact, however, seemed to respond to this escalation. As its energy output grew stronger, it began projecting a three-dimensional star map. Emily and her team worked around the clock, deciphering its meaning. One point glowed brighter than the others, a location deep in the asteroid belt. "There's something there," Emily explained to the gathered military leaders. "A structure, perhaps another artifact. The energy patterns suggest it might hold the key to defeating them." "And how exactly do you plan to get there?" Liam asked. "The Overlords are monitoring every move we make. They won't let us just waltz into space." Emily smiled faintly. "That's why we have you." Liam's team was handpicked for the mission, Earth's best pilots, engineers, and soldiers. Their objective was simple but dangerous: reach the asteroid belt, retrieve whatever the artifact was pointing to, and return before the Overlords could stop them. Emily insisted on coming along, much to Liam's annoyance. "You're not trained for this," he argued as they boarded the stealth ship. "And you're not trained to interpret alien technology," she countered, strapping herself into a seat. "You need me." The stealth ship launched under the cover of night, its advanced cloaking systems shielding it from the Overlord's sensors. As they approached the asteroid belt, the artifact's glow intensified, guiding them to a colossal structure hidden among the rocks. The structure was awe-inspiring, a massive, ancient station made of the same material as the artifact. Its surface was etched with symbols, glowing faintly in response to the artifact's presence. As the team docked and entered, the atmosphere inside was thick with anticipation. Emily led the way, her tablet scanning the symbols and decoding their meaning. "This place is a repository," she said. "A vault of knowledge left by those who fought the overlords before us." The deeper they ventured, the more ominous it became. They found chambers filled with incomprehensible machinery, records in alien languages, and holographic projections of battles fought in distant stars. But at the heart of the station, they found what the artifact had been leading them to, a device unlike anything they'd seen. It pulsed with power, radiating an energy that seemed to resonate with the artifact. Emily's face was pale but resolute. "This is it. This is what they feared. This is what we need to turn the tide." Before they could retrieve the device, alarms blared. The overlords had found them. Their ships swarmed the asteroid belt, closing in on the station. "Looks like they don't want us taking their secrets," Liam muttered, gripping his weapon. "Then we better not let them stop us," Emily replied, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. The team prepared for battle, knowing the fate of Earth hung in the balance.